Today we're going to watch these tools tackle this wood. Hey, this is Todd Wolfe with Made by Wolfe, and today we are doing another Arbortech power carving tool review. This is the third installment in this series. The first installment was an overview of all of the tools. The second installment dealt with these guys right here, the power carving unit, as well as the turbo plane and the industrial wood carver. These are the big boys in their power carving line. They have really good dust collection, but they are the big boys. Today we're looking at their smaller cutting tools, and there are three things that we are looking at. The first thing is this ball gouge. The second thing is this turboshaft. And the third thing is this mini turbo kit. And what we're looking at today is actually the carving tool that is in this kit. We'll be reviewing the sandpaper or the sanding tools in the next installment of this series. So the ball gouge, the turbo shaft, and the mini turbo kit carving tool. And I'm excited because what these guys couldn't do, which was to go deep, these guys can do. They can dig deep into the wood, or so I've been told. We're going to find out today. So join me as I go through the opening up of these tools and putting them on the power carving unit and then digging into these blocks of mahogany. And we're even gonna see what we can do with a little sign with the turbo shaft. Now the heart of PowerTech's tool line is this thing right here called the power carving unit. And I did the unboxing on this on the previous video that showed the power carving unit as well as the turbo plane and the industrial wood carver. So, unboxing done. This is what the power carving unit looks like. It is essentially an angle grinder. The handle and this screw over here allow for the dust shrouds to go on. But the dust shrouds do not work with these items. These items stick out too far and do not allow for the dust shrouds to actually work. So these three things, the ball gouge, the turbo shaft, and the Arbortech mini kit, all mount onto this shaft. And so we're going to just open these up one at a time and look at them, and then we will place them all onto the grinder and we'll dig into these pieces of wood. First thing here is the ball gouge. Now one of the things with this ball gouge that I was curious about is what exactly this tool was. It has a funky Allen wrench right there. I'm sure it has something to do with putting on and taking off this cutting surface. And this cutting surface, all it seems to be is a round disc that has the edges cut back. It's probably, I don't know, cut back at like a 30 degrees off of 90, so that it's a 60-degree angle there on both sides. And essentially what happens, this thing just sits on this, it screws right on there, and then you're able to rotate that, and this disc actually scrapes up the wood. And so you can see how you can go deeper. One of the things that is a common use for these that I've seen is for the gouging out of the bowl of a spoon. And you can see how that can get into some pretty tight corners with that. So we'll take that off there, and it is really apparent that switching out, now there is not a second cutter with this, but switching out the cutter is as simple as that, undoing that, putting the new cutter in, and then replacing this piece of metal which sandwiches the cutter between the shaft and itself. The second item here is called the turbo shaft, and again you can see that the turbo shaft simply screws onto the shaft of the threaded shaft of the power carving unit. It has two cutting discs, and it appears that this whole thing is about 3/4 of an inch. The entire width of this is about 3/4 of an inch, and those two cutting discs are removable. They're held in by a small bolt that goes through the center of that. They're removable, and they're also, you can pivot them around. Currently there is about a quarter of the surface that is exposed that would be getting dull, and by loosening that you can pivot that and expose a fresh surface, and then of course you can take that all the way out, the bolt all the way out, and you can replace that disc entirely when it gets dull. You can see that this allows you to go straight down into a piece of wood. I often have seen it used for lettering. There is this item here, and what this is this is a stop collar that allows, so when you're cutting, for instance, a sign letter, that keeps you keeping the bottom of the letter all the same distance off the surface of the wood. So that is the second cutting item here. Again, that is called the Turboshaft. And then the third item is something called a mini turbo, and I'm going to call it a mini turbo carver, but it's a mini turbo kit because it's the entire, not just the cutter, but it's also the sanding disc. We are not going to be looking at the sanding part of this line right now. We are simply going to look at the cutting part, and we will look at the sanding part of the mini turbo kit in another video. I think that's the next video that we're doing. But the mini turbo kit has a cutter on it that is about 2 inches in diameter, that is much like the industrial wood carver disc, except for this is half the size. It's about 2 inches as opposed to the industrial wood carver, which is a 4-inch disc, and then it has 3 cutting surfaces. This only has 2 cutting surfaces. And so I'm pretty sure this is as simple as a washer that holds this cutting disc, this 2-inch cutting disc, onto the surface of the shaft. And again, this can be taken off and used with the sanding disc over here, and then it threads onto the shaft of the grinder. Those are the 3 things that we will be looking at today in terms of the cutting into the wood and just seeing what these 3 things can do. All right, so we have this block mounted here firmly in the end vise, and I've got everything set up here. This has been tightened down. We're ready to go. You can see there that I'm 2 inches deep here. Was able to cut a fairly deep pocket there fairly quickly, and so that is what I was expecting. Down at this end, you can see I just did some texturing with some round discs there, and so that'd be a possibility of doing texturing on an entire surface like that. Doing a handle of a spoon, if you were doing some type of a sculpture, would allow you to get into areas that the turbo plane and the industrial wood carver just would not let you get into. I'm going to switch this out now, and we are going to put in the turbo shaft. So let us do that right now. All right, so the next thing that we're looking at is the turbo shaft, and again, as I've said before, it is used for lettering. We're just going to do a very shallow cut in this right now and just see what that looks like. So you can see there, that seems to do what it says it should do. Obviously, this is actually not burning. It looks like burning, but it's actually the black paint from the stop collar there. So, but you can see how you could easily do lettering with that. So that's the turbo shaft, and it seems to live up to what they say it can do. Obviously, staying on the line, that's where the skill or whatnot comes in. We're going to switch over now to the mini turbo. We'll get this mounted on and we'll see what that does. All right, so we got the mini turbo disc on here, and it really appears that this disc, just the way that it is shaped, is going to be more for surfacing a small area as opposed to some of their other tools that have an ability to do more contouring. And I say that, one, because it's a disc and these these two cutting discs that are on this 2-inch wheel are only on the bottom edge of that. So it does not give an ability to go in this way into the wood, but rather having to be held this way and moved across. And so naturally it's going to lend itself more to some flat areas. We'll see what it looks like. Well, of all of the tools, this tool, this mini turbo Carver disc, makes the least sense to me intuitively about how it is different and what function it forms that is different than all of the other tools in their line. These two guys here seem to have very, very clear things that they do that others can't do. This kind of struggles. So those are the three tools that we're kind of looking at today, and you can again see here deep gouges and little round sphere things easily done with the ball gouge. This for lettering by the mini Turboshaft, and you can adjust that to different depths and do whatever you want. And then the last thing was the mini turbo kit that has this 2-inch disc on it. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to chuck this up in the bench, and I'm going to play with the Turboshaft and see if I can make this into a little kind of a rustic made by Wolfe sign, and just see kind of what that can look like in a couple of minutes. There you go, it's something you can do with it. Again, that is with the Turboshaft. Again, this is Todd Wolfe of Made by Wolfe, encouraging you to get out there and make something today. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and if you want to know about the rest of the videos in this series, hit the notification bell as well. Thanks for coming, and remember, this is Todd Wolfe of Made by Wolfe, encouraging you to get out there and to make something today.